Welcome back, everybody. Today we're doing a deep dive into swimmer puppy syndrome, or SPS for short. It's this, kind of heartbreaking condition where puppies, they just can't get their legs under them. They end up just moving like little swimmers, on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be looking at a fascinating case report about 4 puppies who face this challenge. And we're going to kind of unravel their story together. What's really interesting is that SPS was once considered, like untreatable. And a lot of times puppies were euthanized, but thankfully veterinary medicine has come a long way, and there's now hope for these little guys.
Yeah, that's right. And you know what's really fascinating about this case report is that it features some breeds that we don't typically associate with SPS. We usually think of brachycephalic breeds like bulldogs and pugs. And while 2 of the puppies in this report were indeed bulldogs, the other 2 were Labrador Retriever crosses.
Labrador Retrievers, wow, that's surprising. You don't often hear about labs with SPS.
Exactly. And this detail really challenges our assumptions about which breeds are most susceptible to this condition. It suggests that there might be some specific genes that are found across breeds that could be playing a role here, not just breed type. So it really underscores, the complexity of this condition.
Okay, so we've got kind of a genetic mystery on our hands here. Tell me more about these puppies. Were there any other unusual details about them?
Well, one of the bulldog puppies had a very unique presentation. Only its forelimbs were affected, and its hind legs were completely normal.
Wow. That's strange. It's like half swimmer puppy syndrome.
That's a great way to put it. Cases like this where only certain limbs are affected, they're less common, and it just adds another layer to the puzzle of SPS.
Okay, so we've got unusual breeds and a partial presentation. What else did the vets observe in these puppies?
Another interesting detail is that some of the puppies also had pectus excavatum, which is a deformity of the chest, where the chest appears kind of caved in.
Oh, I've heard of pectus excavatum in humans. It can cause breathing problems, right?
That's right. You can imagine how a caved-in chest might restrict lung capacity. But here's the interesting thing. In these puppies, a special breathing test that they did showed that their lungs were working just fine.
So even with a chest deformity, their breathing was normal. This SPS is full of surprises.
Absolutely. It just speaks to the resilience of these young animals. But, while their breathing was unaffected, their ability to move was clearly compromised. So the vets had to come up with a treatment plan to help these puppies get back on their feet.
All right, so how did the vets approach this? What tools did they have in their arsenal to tackle SPS?
Well, they turned to a combination of bandages and physiotherapy.
So like physical therapy, but for puppies. So what kind of bandages are we talking about here?
They used 2 main types, chest bandages and hobble bandages. Chest bandages were particularly helpful for the puppies that had pectus excavatum to kind of help support their chest and give their lungs a bit more room to expand.
It's like giving those little bodies a gentle nudge, in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
What about the hobble bandages? What do those do?
Hobble bandages involve gently taping the hind legs together to encourage proper alignment and to prevent those legs from splaying outwards.
So it's not about restricting movement, it's more about guiding it in a way that promotes healthy development.
Exactly. And one of the puppies actually had a modified hobble bandage technique, where its limbs were flexed rather than extended.
Oh, that's different. What was the reason for that?
The vets were applying a principle called Wolff's Law, which states that bones adapt and remodel based on the stresses that are placed on them. So by flexing the limbs, they were hoping to encourage the bones to grow in a more aligned way.
Fascinating. So it's like strategically using the body's natural growth process to help correct those limb deformities.
Precisely. And it's not just about bandages. Physiotherapy plays a crucial role, too.
Tell me more about the physiotherapy. What did those sessions look like?
Well, picture this. The vets use a technique called towel walking. So they would gently place the puppy on a towel and then encourage it to walk while being supported.
Well, I've seen videos of that. It's adorable. Watching those little legs try to move. But beyond the cuteness factor, what's the actual purpose of towel walking?
It's incredibly effective for building muscle memory, for those walking motions. And they also incorporated things like massage and passive range of motion exercises.
So gently moving the puppy's limbs through their full range to keep those joints flexible.
You got it. And all of this was done multiple times a day for several weeks.
Wow, that's a lot of dedication from both the veterinary team and the owners. But I'm curious, were there any potential complications from the bandages or the physiotherapy?
That's a great question. The report did mention that skin irritation or sores can develop if the bandages aren't applied or changed properly.
Yeah, I can see that being a concern. So how did they prevent that from happening?
Well, the vets were extremely diligent about changing the bandages daily and really keeping a close eye out for any signs of swelling redness or discomfort. And of course, communication with the owners was key because they were the ones monitoring the puppies at home.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act, providing the support that the puppy needs while also ensuring their comfort. Did the report mention any other challenges they faced during treatment?
Well, one of the puppies actually contracted parvovirus during its treatment.
Oh no, parvo is a serious viral infection in dogs. What happened?
Luckily, the puppy recovered well, but it just highlights the importance of vaccinations and the fact that these puppies can be particularly vulnerable to infections, especially when they're already facing these health challenges.
Absolutely. Vaccinations are crucial for all puppies, but especially those with underlying conditions like SPS. So despite the bandages, the physiotherapy, even a bout of Tarvo. What were the ultimate outcomes for these 4 puppies? Did they manage to overcome SPS?
That's the question we've all been waiting for, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to report that most of them did. 3 out of the 4 puppies made incredible recoveries, and they were running around like normal within a few months.
That's amazing to hear. To think they went from not being able to stand to chasing squirrels in the park, it's a real testament to the dedication of their owners and the power of veterinary care. What about that 4th puppy, the one who had to pause therapy for parvovirus? Did it recover as well?
That little one had a bit of a different journey. It did eventually learn to stand and walk, but it continued to show some mild lameness and abduction of the forelimbs, even after 6 months.
So a bit of a lingering effect. Do we know if it could continue to improve after that?
Unfortunately, the report doesn't give us any further follow-up beyond that 6-month mark, so we can only speculate. But even with those lingering effects, it's still a remarkable improvement from being completely immobile.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really highlights how each puppy's recovery is unique. And, there can be variations in outcomes, but overall, this case report paints a very hopeful picture. Reinforces the idea that SPS is a treatable condition.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that these puppies actually started treatment a little bit later than what's typically recommended.
Oh, really? So there's hope, even if the diagnosis isn't made immediately after birth.
That seems to be the case. The vets in the report really emphasized the importance of intensive physiotherapy, regardless of the puppy's age at the start of treatment. So it suggests that with dedicated effort and consistent therapy, even puppies diagnosed a bit later can still achieve significant improvement.
That's such an important message for anyone out there who might be facing this with their puppy. Don't lose hope. There are options, and there are success stories out there. But even with all the positive outcomes, is there anything breeders or owners can do to kind of minimize the risk of SPS in the first place?
That's a great question, and it's one that researchers are actively exploring. Given the suspected genetic link, responsible breeding practices like genetic testing and careful selection of breeding pairs could potentially play a role in reducing the incidence of SPS.
So trying to identify dogs who might carry genes that predispose them to SPS and avoid breeding them.
Exactly. It's a complex issue. But with advances in genetic testing, it's definitely an avenue that holds promise for the future. And beyond genetics, there's also ongoing research into the potential role of nutrition and environment.
So like ensuring that pregnant and nursing dogs are getting optimal nutrition to support healthy development of their puppies.
Precisely. And making sure that those puppies have appropriate surfaces to grow and develop their muscles properly.
It all comes back to creating the best possible environment for these little ones to thrive. But, even with all the preventative measures in the world, some puppies might still develop SPS. And that's where early detection and intervention become absolutely crucial.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important for breeders, owners, and veterinarians to be aware of the signs of SPS and to seek help as soon as they notice any abnormalities. Early intervention can make all the difference.
So to recap, we've learned that SPS, while once considered a pretty dire diagnosis, is now a treatable condition with the potential for full recovery, especially with early and intensive physiotherapy. We've also explored the complex interplay of genetics, environment, and even the birthing process as potential contributors to this fascinating syndrome.
Yeah, it's a condition that's still shrouded in some mystery. But with ongoing research and the dedication of veterinary professionals and owners, we're making incredible strides in understanding and treating SPS and ultimately giving these adorable puppies a chance at the happy, active lives they deserve.
Beautifully said. So to everyone listening, if you ever encounter a puppy who's struggling to stand, remember there's hope. Seek veterinary help explore those physiotherapy options. And most importantly, keep those tails wagging. From Vet Neurojar, keep those minds inspired. Hearts light and tails wagging.